This morning, I caught myself humming along to that montage song that I think we all know, which is Suddenly I See. It is from the most iconic movie of Devil Wears Prada. But I was humming this while I was just sitting there making my coffee. I was just kind of relaxing. I was really excited for the fall weather vibes that we were getting in the middle of August. And what I realized was that I have been living in my main character energy a lot lately, probably almost daily at this point. And it's not that movie perfect, dramatic, slow motion kind. No, I'm not talking about that. But the kind where you know you are showing up as the boldest, most confident version of yourself, even if you're just in leggings covered in dog hair. Stepping into your main character energy is one of the most boldest things that you can do for yourself. Not because you're trying to be someone else, but because you are making the intentional choice to show up as you in your most powerful form. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Taking Up Space with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan. I am your dream life bestie, and I'm just a girl building her own dream life, one honest conversation at a time. My main character energy is unique to me, written into my story, shaped by where I've been and where I am going. Today, I want to talk about how to figure out what your main character energy looks like and feels like, and how you can start living in a more powerful, confident version of yourself. This is basically you going through life. You're not acting. It's just you taking up your own spotlight. So let's get into it. One part about being a main character is that we forget that it's not this one size fits all. You can be bright and bold. You can have quiet strength and self-discovery. You can be messy but magnetic, or be the underdog who has turned unstoppable. There's a full spectrum, and it's painted in every color and every personality that you can possibly imagine. And here's the fun part. You can step and dance all over that spectrum. You can be both Elle Woods and Issa D. You can be Jessica Day and Kat Strafford. You can be someone who has that Elle Woods energy, showing up to a room that underestimates you, not toning yourself down, and just letting your results do the talking. You can have your Moana energy, feeling called to something bigger than your comfort zone, even when no one else gets it. And you can have that Issa D energy. You can be messy, honest self-discovery while still rooting yourself in friendship and joy. Personally, I'm somewhere between Moana and Issa D right now, a mix of that self-discovery and that deep growth. I'm turning hard lessons into my own personal power source. And how I did that was starting to own my own story. Because the cool thing about being your own main character is that you get to decide what that means for you. You're not playing a role someone else wrote. You're the writer, you're the director, and you're the star of your own woman production. And the best part, you don't need anyone's permission to step into that power. Stepping into your power means defining what your main character looks like and feels like, not copying someone else's storyline. Sure, you can take inspiration from somebody else, inspiration from me, inspiration from Elle Woods, inspiration from your best friends, doesn't matter. But once you know what your story looks like and feels like, you can start making choices that match the life that you want. There are 4 main pillars of building that main character energy. For me, main character energy isn't about being self-centered. It isn't about constantly chasing the spotlight. Even though we're using that main character metaphor, it doesn't necessarily mean that the spotlight is constantly on you. No, it's about intentionally living as the lead in your own life. Instead of fading into the background of someone else's story, being a side character in your own life, it's you owning it. And when I break it down, there are 4 core elements that help you do that. The first is agency. Agency is you making decisions that move you forward in life. The second is authenticity. You show up as the truest, most aligned version of yourself, not playing a part just to please others. The third is visibility. You allow yourself to be seen and celebrated even when it's uncomfortable. And the final one is resilience. You embrace both the highlight reel and the growth arcs. In each of these areas, it's not about being perfect. It's actually about living boldly, making choices on purpose, and treating your life like it's worth being the main storyline. And I know a lot of us think like, oh, I'm just this boring person. I don't do anything. That's you sidelining yourself. That's you making yourself a side character in your own life. Just because you think that what you do is boring does not mean that it cannot still have that main character energy. And a lot of the times when we're saying, I'm just a boring person or this, we're diminishing ourselves. That's a limiting belief. Look at someone like Taylor Swift. There is Taylor Swift, and then there's Taylor Swift, the one who has the 1700 century hobbies. She's sewing, she's knitting, she's baking sourdough. But guess what's going to be trending today? Because she went on a podcast and told everyone what her hobbies were. I bet you it's sewing, baking, making sourdough starters. And suddenly that's not boring. If you were doing that yesterday, does that make you boring? What changes today? Is it because Taylor Swift said something? It makes you think. What does it mean to be a main character in your own life? And what does it mean to stop diminishing yourself by saying, oh, my life is boring? Instead, let's change it. And let's start to go through what we had to learn in order to become the main characters that we want to be. And that means understanding all of our individual growth arcs that we've had. Because here's the thing, you don't just wake up one morning with all four of these elements, the agency, authenticity, visibility, and resilience. You don't just have all of those day one. And these are not going to be fully formed. They aren't handed to you. They're built through your own growth arc. The same way every main character we love has to go through something that changes them. Think about it in this way. In every book, movie, or show, there is a moment where the main character has to face something uncomfortable, something that forces them to grow. It might be heartbreak, rejection, taking a risk, or failing at something that they thought that they would just crush. Those moments, they're not fun in real life, but they're what shape the version of the main character that we root for at the end. Sorry, I had a little burp there. Should not have eaten lunch right before this. In our own lives, that growth arc can look like leaving a job that's draining us, setting boundaries for the first time, starting over after a breakup, or finally taking a chance on that dream that we've been avoiding. And the more we walk through those moments, the more those four elements actually get stronger. The truth is, growth arcs rarely are going to feel good while you're in them. It's a growth arc. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth can sometimes be painful. Growth is healing. And when you are healing a cut on your body, when you're healing a broken bone, that's not comfortable. You have to be sedated sometimes to get that shit fixed. They're messy, they're vulnerable, and they often strip away the parts of ourselves that we thought we needed in order to survive. Got my words all mixed up there. Growth arcs are also, though, the exact moments that start to forge that confidence, that clarity and strength that we carry forward. And for me, that moment came on my first ever wedding anniversary, though it didn't feel like a gift at the time. I've shared bits and pieces of my story, but if I had to pinpoint the very moment my biggest shift began, it was when my then husband, stoned out of his mind, told me that he wanted a divorce. And this was after telling me that he had a special dinner that he had been planned and he had been thinking about for weeks. So good of him. Thank you so much. What followed ended up being brutal, being pushed out of our friend group. I was dealing with isolation, betrayal, anger, but above all, a deep sadness that clouded every decision that I was making. I am not grateful for the pain that someone else selfishly caused me. I am grateful, though, to the girl who survived it, the girl who decided it was time to start building her life over from scratch. She started living for herself, and the outcome, little old me. When I think of where I am now, I feel like book 1 and 2 of my life are over and complete. There's no rewrites, there's no edits that need to be done. Book 1 was the origin story. It was figuring out who I was, what I believed, and what kind of life I even wanted. Book 2 was the moody part. It was the messy middle. I was fighting for my life. I was questioning everything. I was learning who I could trust. I was rebuilding a belief system from the ashes that had been my life and what I thought were my dreams. Book 3 is where I am now, and it is my badass era. I have had the glow up. I own my power. I know who I can trust. I'm building my empire, and I feel like that bitch. And I'm not afraid of the spotlight anymore. When I look back at that journey, I can see how every messy, painful, bullshit chapter was actually building those 4 pillars of the main character energy I was talking about earlier. That divorce forced me into agency. I had to start making choices for my life instead of letting someone else's decisions define me. It demanded authenticity because if I wasn't radically honest with myself, I would have stayed stuck in a relationship and stayed stuck in an environment that made me feel unsafe and made me feel like I could not be me. I kept showing up and letting people see me rebuild, and it built up my resilience because I walked through heartbreak, loss, and change, and I still have created a life that I am proud of. Those pillars aren't a one and done. They're muscles. The more you live through your growth arcs, the stronger they get. Everything that happened, it was unique to me. I knew at the end of book 1, my divorce, that I not only wanted my life to be different, I needed it to be different. I needed it to be better. I wasn't aware of how everything was going to pan out. I'm still not aware. I have a plan. I have a planner. I have goals. I have dreams. But I do know that there is one thing that will continue to be true no matter which path I end up going down, and that this is my story. I get to define who I want to be. I get to choose my hair color. I get to choose where I work, who I want to be, how I show up for myself and my community. And that is how I define my character energy. So that was a little bit about my story, how I have turned my pain into power, how I have created my own main character energy. And if you listen, you'll hear that it doesn't necessarily sound like one specific type of person. Or if it does, it sounds like me, the main character. But it doesn't sound like, Moana. It doesn't sound like Elle Woods. It doesn't sound like any of those characters that I mentioned earlier. And so we have to think practically, how do we actually build main character energy? How do we build it up? And how do we make it ours and it's specific to us and coded to us as individuals? The first thing we do is we go back to those 4 core elements: agency, authenticity, visibility, and resilience. They're very similar to the core pillars of building your dream life. You start by making decisions that move your life forward, even something as small as listening to this podcast episode. That's agency. You can also start practicing my favorite word, no. Say no to plans you don't want to attend and instead spend time doing something that lights you up. I spend a lot of my time writing, coloring, going on walks, dancing, and singing rather than forcing myself into plans that I have absolutely no interest in. I don't feel obligated to go to somebody's birthday dinner just because I met them one time. I don't feel obligated to attend someone's graduation. I do not feel obligated to go to somebody's baby shower. Sorry. No. Another way to practice agency is by doing something you've always wanted to do. Booking a trip, signing up for a class at your local art shop, or taking a course at your community college. Don't do it to get someone else's approval. Do it because it's going to bring you joy. And finally, organize your schedule so your goals get prime time. I am literally filming this in the middle of my workday because I do not believe in scheduling the things that I care about as leftover time. At the end of my day, my brain is gone, my skin doesn't look as good, my makeup is runny, and that's just because I rub my eyes, not because I have bad makeup. We have to start setting our goals around what actually matters. Yes, we all have jobs. Yes, we all have things that we have to do. But if you know that you need to do these things on a Saturday, dedicate your time to that Saturday. Don't wait until you're burnt out, until you're tired, till you've done all your errands. We need to stop setting our goals aside for when we have time. And instead, we need to allocate our time to those goals. This podcast is at the center of my plans every single week. When am I recording? When am I writing? What graphics need to be created? I do not plan social events until I know what my recording schedule looks like for that week. And every week it is a little bit different because life is different. Life does get in the way. But the main thing though is it's my life. And if I want it to grow, it has to be a priority. And the same thing goes for you. We all have priorities, but what are your top 3? Is one of those goals, just one, the center of your time? Or is it when you have time, when you have a moment, when you have a free Sunday, you'll do it. When you have time on Tuesday night, you'll do it. Because it's never going to get done. Not if you're doing that. Next, we have authenticity. This is showing up as the truest version of you. both the warty parts and the ones filled with glitter. This is where a lot of people, I think, struggle the most because it's vulnerable to share pieces of yourself, especially in different environments. But here's the thing. There's always going to be different versions of you for different contexts. That's not going to change. How you show up for your friends versus your coworkers, that should be different. How you present in a meeting should be different than how you chat with your family members. What can't change, though, is the core of you and what you know as the core of you. So start wearing that outfit that you've been saving. Make today the moment. Wear the fun colors, rock the skirt, put on that new lipstick. If I get one more fucking call. So as long as you're aware of who you are on the inside, for me, I genuinely believe that I am somebody who is more direct. I tend to be more honest. But there has to be layers of that when I am at work versus when I am with my friends. And I like to also present my true colors and who I truly am by wearing the outfits that I've always been saving, making today the moment, wearing the fun colors, rocking the skirt, putting on the new lipstick. I like to share my opinions instead of biting my tongue to keep the peace. Those are just some things that I've been doing to show my authenticity and show who I am as a person, while also understanding that I can only show certain parts of me in certain environments. But remember always, the people who don't like the truest version of you, they were always going to be characters written out of your story anyway. So if you're worried about something a coworker is going to say or something that a friend is going to say, who cares? They are already writing themselves off out of the script by having a bad attitude and not being someone that's there to support you. So wear the thing that you want to wear. Say the thing that you want to say. Be authentic to who you are. This also ties into visibility, letting yourself be seen and celebrated. If you're someone who avoids the spotlight at all costs, I want you to ask yourself, why? Were you told ladies should be prim and proper or seen and not heard? Forget that shit. Be seen. Be heard. Introduce yourself to someone at an event or networking space instead of waiting for someone to approach you. Share a milestone or accomplishment publicly and don't downplay it. We're not humble bragging around here anymore. I'm tired of hearing women humble brag. No, I want you to brag. I want you to yell. I want you to say, look at me, look at me, look at the thing that I did. More women need to do that, and more women need to support women doing that. We are going to raise our hands for the projects at work. We're going to stand out in the sea of people in our own specific ways. So if you're hiding from the spotlight because you're afraid of rocking the boat, because you are quote unquote shy, I really want you to ask yourself, are you shy or have you been put down to believe that you are shy? I want you to think about it. Because finally, we have resilience. This is embracing both the highlight reel and the growth arcs of our life. I like to celebrate the losses just as much as the wins. A friend actually recently told me that taking the L is actually for life and not for losing. And that's been really sticking with me, and I'm laughing about it because life does happen. And there will be situations that are completely outside of your control. Like recently, I've started a challenge where I'm trying to work out 3 times a week. And I mean traditional physical strength training, not just going on a walk, not just running, but no, just actual strength training. And this past week, I was only able to do it twice. And the reason why is life got in the way. There was too many things happening that it was deprioritized. And what I have to do is move forward. There are some lessons that it wasn't about me. It wasn't about my time management skills. It was just that working out was not going to be a priority. It was not going to be safe for my body to do that. So next time you do have a setback, try this. Write down 3 things that you can take from that experience and then do something radical. Move on. Move forward. Don't sit in those emotions for too long. Learn and then take the next step. Celebrate the fact that you survived a difficult chapter, maybe even the whole damn book. Acknowledge the strength it took instead of only focusing on the pain. Be proud, be impressed with yourself for what you were able to handle and what you were able to overcome to continue moving forward. Because every single person has a story. It's just up to us to decide how we want to tell it and how we want to show it. Main character energy isn't about being the loudest voice in the room or having the most glamorous life. It's about writing a story that you are proud to live in, one where you're not waiting for someone else to hand you the pen. You've got agency to take and make the choices that move you forward. You've got authenticity. You've got authenticity that no one else can duplicate. You've got visibility when you decide to step into it, and resilience that's been built from every single challenge that you've survived. Those aren't just traits, they're your superpowers. So here's your challenge this week. Pick one of those 4 pillars and do something to strengthen it. Say no to something that drains you. Wear the outfit that you've been saving. Share a win without shrinking it down. Or turn a setback into a lesson and take the next step forward. And when you do it, I want to hear about it. Message me on Instagram or TikTok on @TakingUpSpaceWithJordan, all one word. I want to hear about your main character moment because I want to celebrate you. I want to help you step into your story. And if you love this episode, as always, make sure that you are subscribed so that you never miss a chance to grow your main character energy muscle. And remember, no one else can live your story for you. So go out there, make it a damn good one. Kisses.